Testing, testing, testing. Trying to get audio to work. Testing, 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 testing. Testing, 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 testing. Testing, testing, testing. Hi, Catherine Smith here from Holistic Financial Solutions. You're here listening to our second YouTube video, and today's session is on buying properties in companies, trusts or super funds, which is the best and why. Presented by myself. I have a number of different degrees and diplomas there, but I think the most important thing of all is that I'm a passionate property investor and have been for over 20 years, buying my first property at age 17 and have bought and sold over 15 properties over the last 20 years. As everything we present, it is a disclaimer. This is very general advice, not specific to your own circumstances, so please seek professional advice, hopefully from us. So what is the opportunity at the moment in the property market? You've probably all heard there's a huge undersupply of housing across Australia at the moment, particularly in certain areas. We have record population growth forecasts. Our population is growing at the fastest rate in over 200 years, and population is predicted to grow by over 350,000 people per annum. We have a housing shortfall of 32% across the nation. Developers simply cannot keep up with demand. We also have rising rents. Rents are increasing, an average growth of 10% per annum in our capital cities. That information that I've just quoted did come from Australian Bureau of Statistics and the ANZ Housing Snapshot and other relevant sources of information. So further, what are the opportunities? We have very low vacancy rates. Anyone who owns property will tell you that it is very easy to find a tenant. In fact, you normally have 20 lined up. Historically low interest rates compared with the 45 years. What that means is very low barriers to entry. Very easy to get into a property for most people. So the population growth and housing demand are very strong fundamentals that create capital growth. The housing shortage is set to worsen. The underlying housing demand is outstripping new supply, and the gap is set to widen sharply. This is the ANZ report showing the black line is showing the number of housing completions around Australia, and the blue line is the actual demand. The two are becoming further and further apart. So now that we've talked about why buy a property, let's talk about how to buy a property. You can buy it in your own name, individual, joints, tenants in common. You can buy it in a company name with you and others as company director. You can buy it in the name of a self-managed super fund, with you, others, your partner or children as members of the fund. You can also buy it in the name of trusts, discretionary, unit and hybrid. And that's what we're here to talk about today. What is the best way to buy property? So in your own name, it's certainly the simplest possible structure, but you have no asset protection in case of relationship breakdown, creditors, lawsuits. It's okay for those who are 100% sure that none of these things will ever happen. You'll never get involved in a relationship that breaks down. You'll never get sued, never be open to lawsuits. If you're okay that none of those things can ever happen, then it's fine to buy in your individual name. And certainly it is a very simple structure and the way probably the majority of people buy property. And one way of protecting yourself is to make sure it's actually geared as much as possible. That is, you borrow as much as possible against the property. What this means is that if anyone does sue you, there's not much there to lose. So, now that we've discussed the simplest way, let's look at some other options if you would like to buy in more advanced structures. You can buy in a company name. It's got a few benefits, but I'm not even going to discuss them because buying in a company name is not recommended under any circumstances. Companies have very bad capital gains tax consequences. Put it very simply, if you're aware, when you have a capital gain, it's immediately 50% exempt from tax. That doesn't happen in a company. So straight away there's a huge tax disincentive to buying properties in a company name. The benefit of buying a property in a company name is simply limited liability. Someone can't sue you and get that property off the company. But there are better ways of doing it, which I'll talk about in a moment. What about in a self-managed super fund? This is becoming a very, very common method of purchasing property because of the benefits. There's a maximum of 15% tax on all rent. You have asset protection, complete asset protection from creditors. There's a maximum rate of 10% on capital gains. But the biggest incentive of all, if you keep that investment property or properties until the age of 60 and commence a pension from your fund, any capital gain on the property will be entirely tax-free. Any rent on the property will also be entirely tax-free, and then any income paid out to you will also be tax-free. Sounds too good to be true? It's actually not. We have a whole separate YouTube video on buying property in a self-managed super fund. So if that takes your interest, please watch that YouTube video or contact us for further information. So now let's look at a trust, which would be the next most common form of property ownership. But what is a trust? Basically, it's simply a promise or an agreement in writing, called the trust deed, between a person who agrees to hold the property on behalf of someone else. The person who holds the property is called the trustee, and it's on behalf of someone else called the beneficiary. There is no one size that fits all. Discretionary, unit and hybrid trusts all have vastly different consequences. So we are going to talk through the different types of trusts. And most of all, get professional advice. Listen to what I have to say here. Hopefully it will give you some good information to work with, but at the end of the day, seek professional advice to see what's exactly right for you. So here's a real-life example of a trust. This is called a discretionary trust, also known as a family trust. The trustee controls the trust. The trustee company controls the trust. The trust owns the property. The trustee has the discretion every year as to who gets what income. That's why they're called a discretionary trust. It can be varied every year. So for example, mum might get 100% of the income one year because she's not working. The next year she goes back to work as a successful solicitor, and dad stays at home and looks after the children. So next year dad gets 100% of the income. The children can also take percentages of the income. There's no fixed ownership of the property, of the trust, so therefore it's very good asset protection. Nobody can sue you for something you don't actually have a fixed entitlement for. So it's very good for families, and it's the most common structure we see families buying properties in. You can also add new beneficiaries at any time, for example, if more children come along. And this is how it's done. You set up a family trust, ABC Trust. Simply buys the property, the bank lends the money to the trust, and takes a mortgage over the property. All the beneficiaries and trustees will still have to guarantee the loan. So why a discretionary trust, and what are the pros and cons? It's not necessarily good for property because you lose the negative gearing benefits. Basically, if the property is negatively geared, that is, and it's making a tax loss, it's locked in the trust and can't be offset against your own taxable income. Some states have very bad land tax regime when it comes to discretionary trusts. It's also a little bit harder to obtain finance. Not too much of a problem if you're using an experienced business mortgage broker. But it is good for cash flow properties, because if they're not negatively geared, you don't need the negative gearing benefits in your own name, then it's a fantastic way to hold the cash flow positive properties. Not in New South Wales though. Once again, there's very, very bad land tax issues in New South Wales for discretionary trusts. So to summarise that, they really are only good for cash flow positive portfolios, or for someone who doesn't need negative gearing benefits, such as someone who doesn't have a taxable income. But they are good as a family structure. And despite the loss of the negative gearing benefits, we do see a lot of families buying properties in discretionary trusts. It's a good way of mum and dad helping the children build up a portfolio and having all of the properties protected from future marriages and divorces and any other financial problems such as bankruptcy of the children. Great for asset protection. So let's move on to unit trust now. Different type of trust. In a unit trust, you have a company as trustee of a unit trust. And in this example, we've got Mr. A, Mrs. B, and Mr. C, each of them owning 33 1/3% of the units in the trust. So the trustee company once again controls the trust. I should point out it's not necessary to actually have a trustee company, but it is highly recommended. Before I mentioned the only benefit of a company is the limited liability. Having the company as trustee gives the whole structure that same limited liability. So the trust owns the property once again. The unit holders are the beneficiaries in this example. The income is distributed by a fixed entitlement to the income. This differs from the discretionary trust, where it is the trustee's discretion every year to change the distribution. With a unit trust, it's fixed. So for example, if the trust makes a profit, Mr. A will get 33 1/3% of that profit, same as Mrs. B and Mr. C, a fixed entitlement. What that actually means is that they have a fixed ownership of that asset. Therefore, for asset protection, it's not as good, because someone can actually sue you for your fixed entitlement of the assets in the unit trust. It also can not be varied each year, it's fixed, but you can add new unit holders at any time. It's good for properties where there are non-related parties. So families are good in discretionary trusts, it's all within the family, everybody's happy, it's all done with a family agreement. Where you've got non-related parties, you really wouldn't want a discretionary trust where there's open discretion every year. If you're owning property co-owner with someone that you're not in a family or in a relationship with, you want your entitlement fixed so that you're protected. The benefit of unit trusts over discretionary trusts is that if structured correctly, the negative gearing benefits can flow through a unit trust. How this is done? Here's an example. The unit trust buys the property. The bank takes the mortgage over the property, but the bank actually lends the money to Mr. A, who lends the money to the trust. So how and why do this? Firstly, the bank lends to the unit holder, Mr. A, who lends it to the trust, ABC, to buy the property. Mr. A guarantees the loan and the bank takes the mortgage over the property in the normal way. Because of this structure, you can get the negative gearing benefits out to Mr. A. The cons, however, it can be a bit harder to get a bank loan. Once again, not such a problem if you are using an experienced mortgage broker. There are more accounting fees because of the structure. So weighing up your trust options, what do you do? So the unit trust, the advantages, as I said, it's best for non-related arm's-length investors. It allows for units to be transferred easily between the parties. It's easy to understand, and you have a company as trustee to ensure limited liability. It may also allow the negative gearing benefits if it's structured correctly. Disadvantage, however, the fixed distributions cannot be varied from year to year, and the asset protection is not as good. Once again, get professional advice tailored to your circumstances. Hybrid trust. In my opinion, a hybrid trust is a very confused trust. It's neither one nor the other. It's a crossbreed of a discretionary and a unit trust. Neither one or the other. It's ruled against by the ATO as a tax avoidance scheme. It's ruled against by the state governments. It's got very bad land tax issues. And most banks simply say no to finance for a hybrid trust. In my opinion, and I might be getting myself in a little bit of trouble for saying this, but I believe it's only recommended by accountants who wish to charge you a fortune in fees. And I've certainly seen this from clients that I have taken over who have had this trust system set up by other accountants. So what is tax evasion and what is tax avoidance? Tax evasion is illegally avoiding tax, and like the pig, you can get hung up to dry by the tax department. Tax avoidance, on the other hand, is actually lawfully minimising your tax. It's simply using the law to benefit you. Part 4A of the Tax Act was introduced in 1981 to make tax avoidance illegal. What it means is that anything done for the sole purpose of reducing tax is illegal. Hybrid trusts, really, their only benefit, other than over and above the discretionary and unit trust that I've mentioned, is that they're solely for the purpose of reducing tax, and therefore it's best avoided unless you want the attention of the ATO. One final type of trust is where the trustee company controls the trust, as before, and the trust owns the property. The difference here is that there's a unit trust, and then there are discretionary trusts that own the units in the unit trust. And then the beneficiaries are discretionary beneficiaries of the discretionary trust. That all sounds like a lot of gobbledygook, but why would you do it? The entitlements in the unit trust are fixed, so the discretionary trusts own a fixed portion of the unit trust, but the entitlements in the discretionary trust can be varied. Once again, why would you do this? This is a very common structure we see where you have, say, two separate families or two separate people who want the benefit of being able to vary the distribution every year, and they want the asset protection of not actually owning a fixed asset, but they also want to have their fixed percentage protected. So therefore they get the benefit of both the unit trust and the discretionary trust by use of this structure. You can also add new unit holders or beneficiaries at any time. So once again, very many different types of trusts. This would be a very common one that we see where you have two non-related parties. The number one benefit of this structure is that the asset protection is now 100%. So it is very good for property purchasing. However, the finance needs to be structured very, very carefully. You really need to be working with a mortgage broker who understands companies and trusts and is able to structure this finance very carefully. So once again, it's good for non-related business partners or multiple families. And back to New South Wales again, sorry for anyone out there listening to this in New South Wales, but don't use this one in New South Wales due to land tax. So weighing up your options. Just a quick summary of what we've been speaking about. An individual, very simple, but there's no asset protection, so be careful. Seek advice. Company, not recommended at all. Simply dismiss that from your mind. An SMSF, fantastic option for those who can lock their money away until 60. Tax-free capital gains, tax-free rent, tax-free pension. Get advice on this. This is one of the most common areas we're working with clients at the moment. Individuals or couples in their 30s and onwards often have enough money in super already to get it out and put it in a self-managed super fund and buy property. Fantastic way. So talk to someone about that, hopefully us. Trusts. They are a good, very, very highly recommended structure, but which type? I've talked about discretionary trusts, unit trusts, hybrid trusts, and a combination. Which type for you? Seek professional advice. And seek it before you actually find a property. So in summary, there's many different options, all have different pros and cons. There is no one size that fits all. Get advice before you even start looking to buy a property or set up a business. Get your structure right first. So many people I see go backwards. They find the property, then get advice on what should they do. Talk to a professional first and get your structure set, which once again is shown by this diagram. It's like a pyramid. Unless you get your foundations right, it's very hard to get the rest right. Just like you wouldn't build a house without a proper set of plans. The most important part of every business venture or property portfolio plan is getting the foundations right in the first place. Research your options, get advice, get it right before you begin. Saying that I have used for a long, long time is those who fail to plan to fail. So set up the structure first. So luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So good luck, just get your preparation going, because there is no hope of success for the person who does not have a central purpose or a definite goal. So where to from here? You could consider a property portfolio review. Have you ever wondered how many properties you could buy? How much you can borrow? How much will it cost you per week? And how you should structure the purchase for tax purposes. We do a property portfolio plan for our clients for only $385, which includes an hour consultation with myself to discuss the plans, the tax consequences, and anything else you would like to discuss about your property journey. If you'd like to take advantage of that, email myself, Catherine, at wfscanberra.com.au, or hop onto our website. You can also download our free report, which is how to build a property portfolio the right way. We talk about the right investment, the right finance, the right tax advice, the right property, the right management, the right coach, and the right first steps. That can be downloaded from www.wfscanberra.com.au. So where to from here? Determine your strategy. Come in for a free meet and greet appointment to see what Holistic Financial Solutions can do for you. Download the free report. View our other YouTube videos, particularly the one on self-managed super funds. Simply contact me for further information at catherine@wfscanberra.com.au. Thank you very much for listening, and please have a look at our other YouTube videos. Testing, 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 testing. Hi, I'm just testing this time. Make sure this goddamn thing's working this time.